Welcome everybody to this World Satsanga on the 16th of December 2016, and it's also, as always, it's now in conjunction with the Moore Show, so it's also broadcast on Kevin Moore's YouTube channel as well, where Kevin does an excellent job of putting graphics on to the audio that supports this Satsanga. And I'd like to wish everybody a wonderful Yuletide season as well, because obviously this takes us over Christmas and New Year and into 2017. So Christmas greetings and season's greetings and New Year to everybody who listens to this Satsang. And thank you for continuing to listen to it, and thank you for those people who sent in questions this particular month. We've got a lot of questions to go through, so you'll have to bear with me if I speak a little bit quick over the next hour or so. So let me just quickly go through the agenda. The first part is a little short talk on what dreams are, and I will also give you, if I can, a little bit of information that I gained from Paramahansa Yogananda about what he believes dreams are, or what he thought dreams were in terms of their relevance and their interpretation. Then we've got a whole group of questions. We've got questions from 4 people this time, which is fantastic. And then we got an end of meditation, or end of session meditation, which is connecting with the source. Now, I've done this a few times, but in this instance, I'm going to show you a technique that allows you to connect to source whilst here, rather than using the consciousness or projecting the consciousness into a higher level of frequency. I'm going to show you how to bring the source to you at these levels of frequency that are associated with incarnate existence. Okay, so let's go through the first part. So what are dreams? There's various different interpretations of what dreams are, and there's a lot of books out there that identify how dreams can be interpreted and what they mean. And most of them are symbolic. Now, that's a reasonable consideration in terms of the symbology, and I'll explain what I mean by that later. But dreams are basically two things. One, they can be messages or information or guidance from our guide and helpers to help us with our particular sort of journey on our incarnate journey, giving us information about how to solve problems, how to make different choices, directions to go into, and how to interact with others. And also they can be memories, fragmented memories of projections of the consciousness outside of the gross physical form. Sometimes we call this astral travelling, other times it's further than astral travelling. I'll explain the difference between astral travelling and projecting the consciousness outside of the physical universe in a moment. So, in the first instance, the dreams themselves are given as images or sounds, shapes, feelings or knowingness by our guide and helpers. And if they're images, we tend to get them in a symbolic way, so to speak. So this would tie in with a lot of the information given in various different texts about what dreams are. So the symbology is relevant to various different things. And if you're into symbology, then there's a number of books out there that clearly you can get them from Amazon, describing or trying to interpret what dreams are. But usually things like animals are our base instinct, individuals around us are an aspect of ourselves, and the environment around us is usually used as a method of saying where we are, what we're doing. And the house is usually our self, our true energetic self or higher self, over soul or Godhead, whichever way you want to describe it. And the rest of it is to do with how we move through our particular spiritual existence. For instance, an aeroplane is our spiritual drive, in terms of how we move, whereas a motor car, or a bicycle, or a motorbike is our drive whilst incarnate, our motivation, if you want to call it that. So the symbology associated with giving guidance by our guide and helpers is based upon those basic terms, and we interpret them based upon that. Basically, we work out what somebody's doing to us in our dreams as a reason for understanding some part of our own personality that we're trying to work with. We understand how our spiritual journey is by seeing the sort of size of plane that we've got, or how high it goes, or what happens to it, and the same with the car. And of course the house is also an indication of how big we are, and potentially how many rooms are in the house are usually an indication of how many other aspects are projected into physical forms, and where we go there. Other things like the sea or water are also an indication of cosmic consciousness. That means tapping into the consciousness of Source, and the environment that Source is, not just the consciousness or sentience of Source, but also the energies associated with Source that house that sentience. So, when looking at dreams, think of it in terms of one particular aspect of it is that we are being given guidance by our guide and helpers. The second one, which is astral travelling and projecting the consciousness beyond the physical universe, can be described in the same way, although in terms of the interaction and the information that we get can be described in the same way, although where we go to is different. For astral travelling, we basically don't go outside of the physical universe. We stay within the frequencies associated with what is called the astral plane. In my understanding, that's the 4th, 5th, 6th and 7th frequencies. The 4th frequency being the lower astral, 5th being the upper lower astral, 6th being the lower upper astral, and the 7th being the upper astral. And so when we astral travel, we stay within the frequencies that are associated, or very close to, those that we are incarnate into, but also that stay well within the frequencies associated with the first universe, the physical universe, which is where we are now. In terms of the other projecting the sentience beyond the physical universe, that's similar to the traversing the frequencies work that I teach in my TTF workshops, where we project the consciousness into the rest of the clearly the physical universe as well, and the higher frequencies, but also the other universes or frequential levels that house these universes within the structure of the multiverse, which is a function of the structure of the Source. And so we project our consciousness into those areas as well, which means that we leave our environment, the physical universe, and move into different environments. Now, in that instance, in both of those instances, we will be experiencing different things. And if we move into areas of the physical universe that are of a higher frequency and outside of the confines of the planet Earth, then we start to experience things which are outside of our current understanding through this particular incarnate existence. So in that respect, we would experience things that we don't have any knowledge of, so to speak. So when we see something or experience something or know something, there's no reference point for us. There's no direct reference point for us, that is. And so what we do is we, in effect, see nothing sometimes. This is the effect of the dreamless sleep, because there's nothing to relate it to. We don't have any vocabulary to help translate it, and our vocabulary is everything we've experienced in this particular incarnation. So it's not just the spoken language or sign language, it's the total experience that's being used as a translation medium. And that could be anything from cartoons to television films, going on holiday, experiencing your career, or at school or university. So everything you've experienced is an experience, is a form of language that you can use to translate what's being experienced in these various different excursions, either astral or extra-universal, so to speak. So when we get experiences there, we will get something which we either understand directly, which is usually when we're astral travelling. There's a direct translation there, so there's no need to have any symbology or have any translationary errors, so to speak, due to our lack of direct knowledge. Or we have the translation effect, which usually happens to us when we go beyond the Earth and also beyond the physical universe. And so, if there's something which is close to us, close to our level of understanding, it's used as a translation medium. And one of the things I like to use in the Traversing the Frequencies workshops as an example of what happens is that if we, for instance, have never seen a giraffe before, but we're then presented with a giraffe, what do we call it? We either see nothing because we've got nothing to translate it with. We don't have anything that's got 4 legs a horizontal back, a neck, a head and a snout and a tail, or we have something which is similar. So if, for instance, we've never seen a giraffe before, but we've seen a dog before, and we know what a dog is, we look at the four legs of the dog and the four legs of the giraffe and say, yeah, okay, there's a similarity there. We look at the horizontal body of the dog and the horizontal body of the giraffe, and we say, yes, there's an example, there's a reasonable sort of correlation there. We look at the tail, yeah, there's tail on both of them, so there's a correlation there. The neck on both of them, but the neck is taller on the giraffe, but okay, there's a neck on a dog, so it's fairly similar there. And there's a head there, and a mouth, and a snout, and a nose, and there's ears. And again, that's the same with the giraffe versus the dog, and there's a similarity there. Okay, the giraffe's got a couple of small horns, and that's a sort of slight error, but nevertheless it can still be considered to be a dog, even down to the coat having a different pattern to the dog. We know some dogs have got different coloured patterns on their coats, so we can say, okay, the giraffe's a dog. And so what we get when we see a giraffe is a picture of a dog, not the giraffe, because that's the translation medium that's gone on, and that's the process of how we translate. So when we experience these different things from extra-Earth astral travelling or extra universal travelling, and we don't have a direct translation, i.e. we see a dog and we know what a dog looks like, so it's a dog, then we see something which is a translation, which is the giraffe being represented as a dog. And so we start to see things that are a bit strange. And sometimes we get cartoon images given to us as well, or characters from films, because those are the closest things that we can use as a translation medium. And so it's not uncommon in dreams to see cartoons, or it's not uncommon also within the TTF excursions, the traversing frequency excursions, to also get cartoon images. So we have to, when we see these sorts of things, we have to use them as a translation. What do they mean? What would they represent? What would they be close to? And so we can use that as a way of trying to decipher what we're experiencing when we have excursions beyond the universe and within the universe, but within the astral levels. So the only way to work with this is to get used to what something means to you. What does this image mean to you? What does that image mean to you? What does this experience mean to you? What does that experience mean to you? And then if you're experiencing something in your dream or your memory of extra Earth excursions, through astral travelling, or extra universal excursions through predicting the consciousness further as part of your sleep time work, and or the images that you can be given by your guide and helpers, try to use commonality in your interpretation. Do it on a regular basis, work out what it is, and you'll start to get a really accurate response. But don't forget that there's always going to be new translations or new symbology that comes into it sometimes, or new strange images. And so we have to work out what those images mean to us, and then we start to get the full picture coming out. So, a little bit on how to translate what images are, what images we can see in dreams, and the summary on what dreams are. Basically, they are either information or guidance from our guide and helpers, or they're images from astral travelling within the frequencies associated with the astral levels, sometimes on the Earth, sometimes off the Earth, or they're images from our consciousness being projected beyond the physical universe. So, well, I hope that explains that. And what I would do is, for those of you who are interested, just do go onto Amazon and just simply type in something like dream translation, or understanding what dreams are, and there's lots and lots of books there. Okay, so let's have a look at what we've got in terms of our questions now. We've got lots of questions. So the first question is, the biggest questions that I've been coming up with this at the moment is, with all the world events occurring and given, is that we appear to have free will. And that's correct, we do have free will. How is it then that we seem to be making choices that are uninspired, unhealthy and uninformed? I often feel as if I'm watching a drama unfold with none of the actors realising they're in a play. How do we really help people that claim to want help and yet seem incapable of making any changes? I think that's the second question. I'll come back to the first bit. At the moment, the Earth is going through an extended downward movement in terms of frequency. I felt we were going up earlier in the year, probably about February time. Then just after February, we started to dip down, and I associated first the dip down being similar to the normal sort of sawtooth profile we get when we move up and down the frequencies, but with the average of being upwards. However, I've since recalibrated that thought process and realised that it's actually that we're going through another downward profile, a continued downward profile that is more like the sort of sawtooth profile of a large wood saw, the sort of thing that we used to have where we had one man in a pit, another man at the top of the pit, and there was this huge 10-foot long saw that they would pull, and the teeth were big teeth with little teeth in between the big teeth, so to speak. And we've recently been going up and down the little teeth profile. Now we've gone into a big tooth profile, a big downward tip. So those who are maintaining their frequencies as a result of this drop will see things happening around us. They'll feel more like people aren't understanding what's going on around them. They don't understand their environment. They don't understand what they are from a bigger perspective. But also, as we move down the frequencies, if we're not careful, we do also move down as well. And so we start to lose very gently, it's almost like going to sleep, we start to lose very gently our own connectivity. And so we start to go into different levels of states of connectivity and functionality. And one of those states is that we start to, although we've forgotten our high functionality, because that's a function of higher frequency, of a higher frequential state, we start to have this feeling of there's something else out there. There's got to be more than this life, and there's got to be more than what we're experiencing. And so we're in the we go back into the sort of first stages of the awakening process, where we're starting to question our environment and the actions of ourselves and those individuals around us. And so this is what's going on. We're making choices that are uninspired, unhealthy, and uninformed because we're dropping down the frequencies, and we're not vigilant enough sometimes to catch ourselves dropping down the frequencies. Like I said, it's a little bit like slowly falling to sleep in front of the fireplace while we're watching television. It catches us out. So that's why we're moving down, and that's why some of us are getting that feeling. Again, thinking about it now, this probably is an addition to or an extension of the first question, and I'll say it again. I often feel as if I'm watching a drama unfold with none of the actors realising that they're in a play. And that's the feeling, basically. That's the feeling of understanding that there's a greater reality out there, and that people are just going through their incarnate existence. They are totally immersed. And when we're more alert, aware, and awake, and at a higher frequency, we do feel as if we are watching a play, because everybody is so immersed in their incarnation that they're not able to wake up and realise who and what they really are. And again, you won't be able to help them. So how do we really help people that claim to want to help you, seeming capable of making changes? The old adage that you can lead a horse to water, but the horse has got to drink the water itself, or wants to drink the water itself, i.e. you can't make it drink the water, is absolutely true in this instance. There are that many individuals who want to be healed, but then can't make or can't get to on a regular basis the healing appointment. It's amazing. And so all we can do is send them love and understanding, and show and lead by example. We can't make anybody go anywhere. This is all part of this free will business. We can only show what the route is, what the best route is. We can't force them to go in any direction. So all we can do is send them love and give them advice when they ask for it. But don't. If they ask for advice, we give it to them, and they go and do something completely different. Don't get frustrated. It's just that they don't really understand that they have to move forwards in that way. Okay. And next part of it is David Spangler from Findhorn. Findhorn is a place in the UK. For those who don't know, it's a community, the Findhorn community. It's based upon an idealistic system where we can all work together in a sort of a kibbutz or a ashram type existence, where we all work for the benefit of each other. And it works well, although they would also say that they've got their own problems as well. But David Spangler says he claims that our biggest problem is not that we are spiritual beings incarnate in the flesh, but rather that we are not incarnate enough in the flesh. And the question asker is saying, I believe we are right. I don't really subscribe to that comment by David Spangler. I think it's that if we were to incarnate, we wouldn't be allowing ourselves to move beyond the need to incarnate. We'd continuously come here because we'd continuously be immersed in it. The whole point of being here is to experience, learn and evolve whilst experiencing the aspects of the lowest frequencies, and whilst we're here in this particular instance, move beyond it. And so if we're not moving beyond it, we stay within the cycle. So from my understanding is we must get to the point where we start to detach ourselves from our incarnate state. Otherwise we don't take the opportunity to progress, to experience, learn and evolve through incarnation. There needs to get to a point where we are no longer in the need to incarnate, and then we'll be evolving through using the higher frequencies rather than just the lower frequencies and the higher frequencies together. So the last part is the only solution to help people embrace more of their spirituality? Yes, we need to educate them in a way which is, for want of a better word, the way that they can support. There's that many different ways of learning. We have to understand those different ways for people and deal with them on an individual basis, and that's difficult. So we do need to move forward in that particular way, in a way which is useful and realistically digestible for those people who have got different learning skills. Okay, so thank you for that. Next questions are. So first question is. There's a bit of a preface. This leads to my series of questions to request. Okay, this is another one of my students who's asking me lots of questions about source and source's perspective. Okay, so what's in a name? A rose by any other name would smell so sweet, as Shakespeare said. Words are simply a reduced form of communication that fails compared to the intuitive mental interaction directly. But written and verbal language is what we are reduced to right now. Correct. Basically, that's a function of being in low frequencies. A name is a representation of who and what we are. Now, although our parents give us names, the parents are guided to give us names, and the names have a resonant frequency associated with who and what we are, from a greater personality perspective, not an ego-based personality perspective. So the next part is, how can we use this weapon of the written and spoken word to awaken the masses to the power of mankind, and our desire and our dire need to evolve through peaceful interaction? And that's the question. This may seem trivial to ask what the intrinsic power that we assign to things is and how we can undo some of the negative connectivity, but we are becoming an increasingly polarised society where ignorance of recent history dooms cultures to relive and repeat these scenarios. In my own short time, I've witnessed these events unfold. If we remain ignorant of the lesson, it is repeated. Yeah, I totally agree. And again, we need to be in a situation where we are leading by example rather than by rote, actually. We can give information in books, in videos, in audios, and we can give information on a one-to-one basis, on a verbal basis. But it's always down to the desire of the receiving or the recipient of that information to run with it, to move forwards with it and to use it. That's the issue here. So all we can do is to continue to think good thoughts, continue to think high thoughts, high frequency thoughts, behaviours and actions, and lead by example. And also, there's nothing wrong with writing information about how to live and how to be in the physical but not the physical, and it's important to do so. But more importantly is how to broadcast that on a regular basis in a way that you know you're doing a difference, and that is to be example. Be the example. Be the individual who's showing how to live, and let people follow you if they want to, and that's the way forward. And they may not show that they're following you. They may just look at what you're doing and go, okay, that's good for me, and do it themselves. And that's the way forward. Okay. So the next part of it is going beyond the names we assign to things. Is the recent energy that I would like to inquire about is associated with people, geographic locations, periods of history, etc. Can one transcend or transmute the energy of association from a destructive to a constructive, or disharmonious to a harmonious form? Particularly, how do we go about doing this when we live among layers of associations that are culturally embedded? Okay, that's a good question. There's a preface to it here as well. Associations of all kinds and names that we give to familial, national, cultural, religious separations. These end up serving as prisons for our thoughts, constraining our ability to connect to oneness, to our uniqueness. I see these two as intertwined, not polarized components of oneness and uniqueness. Yes. Now then, this is all something to do called segmentation. Now, in segmentation, we associate ourselves, or we associate others, to various different thoughts, behaviours, actions, interactions and locations, and we segment them based upon that. When we start to work in a more generalised state, resulting from being a higher frequency, then we no longer segment people. We no longer say that they're Somalian, we no longer say that they're British, we no longer say that they're American, we no longer say that they are German. We say that they're human beings on Earth. Now, this, unfortunately, right now, we're going through a slight downward trend in the frequencies, as I previously stated, and this is resulting in us starting to re-segment areas. I mean, we can just see what's going on in Syria and Iran and Iraq and those sort of areas, and even within our own country, where, for instance, in the UK, we're giving power back to Wales, the Welsh Assembly, and to the Scottish Parliament and the English Parliament. You know, we were supposed to be in a United Kingdom, and we're no longer a United Kingdom. We're just a series of kingdoms again, and this is happening all over the world with various different things. We in giving power back, which is what we should. I mean, we should never have taken the power in the first place, but we are segmenting people. And what we should be doing is working for the benefit of everybody in an equal way. And this is only going to happen when we're of a higher frequency. So unless we are showing how to exist and live in this instance, by not classifying individuals as being one person or another, or the area that they live in being one type of area or another, or one type of experience as being one experience or another, we will always segment, and we'll always embed individuals within their culture, within their environment, and within their location on the Earth. So we need to expand ourselves and think beyond that, and think of ourselves as just human beings. There's various different predictory science fiction films or other sorts of fantasy films that show that when we are threatened externally by other things, such as a mechanised world or a series of other entities that come to Earth and try to take the Earth, that we all start to forget our differences and work together. And maybe that's the thing that needs to happen. Maybe we need to see ourselves properly as being a civilization or group of entities that are incarnate on one planet, and that there are other individuals out there. But all that will do eventually is, although we'll work together as being we are human beings, and we'll forget our differences and our segmentations, we'll start to segment ourselves and say, well, actually we're human beings, and we won't look at the bigger picture, which is we're an incarnate entity that's using the bodies that are on the Earth, and we're also part of this other greater series of incarnate entities, which are also souls incarnating, but they're experiencing that incarnation in a different body in a different location within the galaxy, or even another galaxy within the universe. So I hope that answers that part. Next part is I, as an individual, can expand my awareness to see a greater reality and oneness through meditation, and in brackets, and by meditation that can be achieved in myriad different ways found in respectful contemplation in nature. Transcendentally, traditionally, or whatever way one realises thoughts and expands their awareness. So the big question here is, well, that was a preface, by the way. How do we communicate that message of peaceful expansion, tolerance, and uniqueness? And how do we convey this message to those that link people into the group of other and them? How do we help each other to become the observer rather than the actor? And again, the bit at the bottom is that we live among a society, Western culture in particular, and the ripple that it impacts directly and indirectly, that is obsessed with the attention for egoic reasons, and by definition this is the actor role, not the observer. This links to the role of emotions as guides, rather than the dictating actions and the polarity that arises when one is the puppet role of being the actor. This reminds me of addiction, which is defined as the intention to experience low-frequency stimulus, and that's on page 85 of the Dialogues. All we can do is, again, as individuals, is work with individuals who are like-minded. Paramahansa Yogananda used to say that if you want to experience expansion and samadhi and continue to work towards it, then you need to surround yourself with like-minded people. Because when you start to surround yourself or interact with individuals who are invariant to your thoughts, then you come down to their levels quite naturally, and so you never expand. So to go forwards, we need to continue to work with each other and work with those individuals who are of like mind, and together we move up the frequencies. And then, of course, we have the different forms of triangulation, direct and indirect, and inflational triangulation that allows other people to be affected by us, and that they will also start to be pulled up the frequency as well. And when they do so, they will also start to seek better company and to work in a higher way as well. And so this is particularly a function of really, again, shown by example, but working with people and only working with people who are of that sort of thought process, and avoiding those individuals who are soothsayers of doom, or always looking at conspiracy theories, or always trying to gossip about somebody or put somebody down. I very quickly mentioned Paramahansa Yogananda there, and I realised I forgot to mention what his comments were on dreams. And he didn't put much thought, he didn't put much value on dreams, by the way. He thought that they weren't informative as such. He thought that they were just simply the sort of abstract translations of what was experienced. He valued samadhi, which is a form of transcendental meditation, where projecting the consciousness outside the physical form, more, because that's done in a conscious way, more than receiving information in an unconscious way. So he was more into conscious experience rather than unconscious experience, and irregular memory, or the need to offer translation to the information that's there. So that was Yogananda's thoughts on dreams. So a slight digression, sorry about that. Let's move further down. So the next question is on the topic of low frequency versus high frequency stimulus. Can I elaborate on low frequency stimulation? Is this merely seeking to saturate one's awareness in the physical senses, i.e. overindulgence of our sensory perceptions expressed as neuroses, diseases and addictions, or does low frequency stimulus include the shunning of moving into the high frequency that requires a refinement of the human vehicle? And there's a little bit at the end says, by this I'm referring to the fear of learning or questioning things, ideas, political agendas, etc., thought to be known. The conceptual idea behind this argument is that frequency possessing requires the capability of the instrument to gain a given frequency, and that's a human form. To which extent are those gaining evolutionary content through addiction cycles choosing their path as opposed to being on a fractal created by the intention in the first place? And how can we work with all these karmic links in the present moment? Whoa. Low frequency stimulation is basically thoughts, behaviours and actions that are not pure. By not pure I mean they are negative thoughts about people, gossiping, being arrogant or being angry or not helping others in terms of behaviour patterns, not understanding people, not wanting to understand people, and the actions associated with this, which things like dropping litter in the street, or things like having road rage, things like being aggressive at work, or shouting at people, or being arrogant or conceited, or jealous. Those sorts of things are all part of the low frequency stimulation. The physical side of it is things like taking drugs without knowledge of what they are, what they're for, and seeking the responses that drugs give us on a regular basis, in variance to that's in a mechanical way, by the way, invariance to using meditative techniques to achieve the same things and greater. So, and also things like physical stimulus, such as through sex that's being used as a pleasure, rather or as a stimulation, so to speak, rather than through to loving individuals who are using it to recreate or reproduce the human form through love. And so there's a different thing there. So anything that is physical, that is basically addictive, is low frequency stimulation. And that's thoughts, behaviours. Whoops! Whoa, 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 whoa! I've got a little pussycat who's with me here now, and she's got her claws stuck in me. Okay, so let me just. There we go. There, you sorted out now. My cat, Madam Pussy's with me, and she's been sitting with me all the time, and she got her claw stuck in my jeans, and she couldn't remove it, and she moaned a little bit. So there we go. Madam Puss on air. Okay. So really, it's all about understanding what is human, and trying to avoid the things that are specifically human. And the only way to work out of it is, again, to surround yourself with individuals who are of the same mind, moving upwards rather than downwards. And sometimes that does require isolation. You know, you find that people who are moving forwards put themselves into an ashram or a kibbutz, or they become a bit of a hermit, for instance. You know, they sort of isolate themselves because they want to move upwards, and they don't want to be affected by that which is happening around them. And so that's the way some people can progress themselves. And so we can only work it out by recognising it within us, using the observer self to observe how we've responded in our thoughts, how we respond in our behaviours and actions within various different things which affect us within our environment, and how we interact with others, and then try to work out what the better solution was. And next time we're faced with these particular interactions with others, we then try to introduce the better solution, or the better interaction, the better thought, or the better behaviour, or the better action, rather than the aggressive one, or the individualised and the selfish one. So that's the way to do that, really, is to sort of once we're doing all these things, then the human form will move up the frequencies. The next one is the intention to experience, which is on page 87 of the Down Dialogues, and I'm really delighted people are reading this book and enjoying it. It was a bit of a watershed for myself, as you can imagine, but also it's also very informative as well. And although it's based upon known subject headings, and I thought that there was no need to do this sort of book because there's lots out there, actually the information that's come out is also additional, an additional level of detail and depth to the existing understanding as well. So anyway, back into page 87 in the End Dialogues. The aspect is said to experience similar addictive conditions until the situation no longer generates the desired function. Can I elaborate on why aspects choose to embark on addiction paths? Is it to fulfill a cleansing of their energies before reintegration with Tess, true energetic self, or is it a choice at all, or is it a choice at all, but rather a karmic fractal created by low frequency intention? Can I elaborate on this, the extent of this need to quarantine a newly demised aspect from these addictions? And there's a bit at the end. Seems to me that even if the modern Western lifestyle generates an addictive element to be karmically worked out, our consumption has created addictions of all sorts that range from the numbing of our perceived pain through various different socially named and medically labelled drugs, to the hoarding of wealth itself, to the ownership and hoarding of things, to wasting of our time. So many addictions to name. It's unbelievable, I guess. Yeah. This begs the question of how long can we live like this, generating a lifestyle that creates a karmic addiction, fractal spirals laid upon us. Eventually, we'll have to move out of it. Otherwise, we'll crash and burn. But the reason for why an aspect would incarnate into an environment that creates addiction or expose them to addictive paths is to give them choice. We choose to experience the addictions, or we choose to ignore them and move on. And it's as simple as that. we sometimes choose to experience them because experiencing them and then choosing not to experience them later, and the time between experiencing them and choosing to not experience them later can be from minutes to years, is because it's all to do with gaining a level of evolution. That evolution is we gain more evolutionary momentum or progression by experiencing things that are, from the common sense point of view, not desirable. And so, if we can experience these things and only experience them once because we choose not to experience them later, or we choose to change the way we operate, think and behave and act so that we don't experience them later, then we've experienced them, learnt from them and moved on. So it's all to do with giving ourselves the ability to experience something, and that's enough. It's a bit like going to the cinema and seeing a film once and then thinking, I've seen that film now, and then not bothering again. Whereas other people go and see a film 3 or 4 times. It's a bit like going to a fairground and experiencing a ride once, and you think, oh, that was scary, but the adrenaline boost was such that, I wouldn't mind doing that again. The adrenaline boost being low frequency addiction. So we either think, I'd like to do that again to experience the adrenaline rush, or do I say, okay, I've done that now, and move on, and realise that it's no longer an attraction for us. And so this is something that is of a choice. Now the karmic part of it is when we decide to go back, and we get addicted to it. We want to go back. We want to experience this. We want to experience the fairground ride. We want to experience the adrenaline rush. We want to experience the heightened sensory perceptions associated with taking drugs. All these different things. We want, we come back because we want to. And there's other things in terms of karma where we've got to work with other individuals because we need to sever links. The archetypical, somebody's done something wrong to you, so you've got to do that same thing wrong to them in the next life. But the idea is actually that you can sever the link and no longer need to do the reciprocal action as well. So moving away from the need to reciprocate by forgiving or asking for forgiveness, and therefore forgiveness being given is one of the ways forwards. But in terms of the need to come here, there are souls do get addicted to being here, and this is a bit like experiencing going out and having more alcohol that you can cope with every night, and but wanting to have the buzz associated with it, and the same with drugs. So moving and then later on changing and saying, okay, I've done this now. It doesn't work for me anymore. I'm no longer going to take alcohol or drugs. So you become teetotal and you become clean. So it's to do with really experiencing something difficult, working with it, and then moving away from it, or choosing to move away from it. And this is the whole point of this particular universe. One of its functions is duality. What we classify as right and wrong, up and down, left and right, the good road or the bad road. There is no good and bad, up and down, left and right, forwards or backwards, by the way. There's only choice. But the choice is that we can choose to take a faster route or a slower route. And the slower route is they're getting addicted and staying there, and the faster route is experiencing the addiction and then moving on. The addiction, or should I say, experiencing the possibility of becoming addicted through the interaction with whatever substance or thoughts or behaviours or actions or stimulus that can be there as well. Okay, so I hope that answers that particular question. I think I could probably write a book on that, actually, looking at the potential fractalised thought processes that could go with that one. Next one is, after the demise of the human vehicle, you mentioned in the Anomalies in page 33 to 34, that an aspect can keep creating their temporary environment until it recognises where it is, while those working with the higher frequencies can go straight into the life review process. This begs the question of time. And the question is, how long can one remain in this limbo state before entering into the life review process? And then it so states that you return to this topic on page 64 when it is stated that some aspects or souls fail to realise their true energy form and remain in a pseudo state of awareness, like being in a dream. So this brings two issues: what is dream? What is time? What is dreams? there's no relationship between dreams and the first questions and this particular instance. This is like being in a self-created, totally contained in reality that we've created ourselves. Some souls who are totally immersed in their incarnation simply fail to recognise that their physical form is demised, and they fail to recognise that they are energy beings. They recreate everything around them that they previously experienced. They recreate their house, their friends, their family, the neighbourhood that they live in. The whole world is basically recreated, and it takes a long time for them to come out the other side. And there's a lot of work goes on by the guide and helpers to try and move them out of this particular condition. So it's not really. So it takes a bit of time for the reality to be broken out of. But basically, when one is aware and awake, one moves straight into the energetic and understands what's going on, and goes into the life review process in the various different forms that takes, and in the ways that we described in the own dialogues. Those who are totally immersed do struggle. Some break out of it fairly straight away, but they can be there for, they can be there for hundreds of years in terms of human time, what we call time. So they can stay there for hundreds of years, even thousands of years. It's up to them into how fast they break out of this recreated environment. And also it's also the skill of the guide and helpers to help them move out of that particular creation, because it's one of the images I got is that there can be a whole group of you can have a whole group of aspects working together in the energies, and then you have one that's got like a sphere around them, a sphere around the sphere, and that sphere is their reality that's recreated, their incarnate reality is recreated, and so they don't see anybody else. They're there energetically, but they are surrounded by another sphere, which is the creation of their reality that they want to stay with, and so this other sphere needs to be broken down, and that's what the guide and helpers work hard to do, to try to remove that. And so it can be there. There's no limits. There's no rules or regulations as to how long this thing can be there for. I mean, this particular generated reality, this individually generated reality, can be there for anything from a few seconds to a few millennia, and that's basically how it works. It's unfortunate that our ability to be incarnate can end up being presented to us beyond the demise of the human form. So this is the question on time. Is it the issue of time itself seems to be an entirely third-dimensional construct? So it seems rather like an arbitrary tool of measure to even suggest that, because I use it because we still believe it is a dimension rather than a way to measure distance and weight of objects that reflect or absorb light, as I understand it. Yeah. So in time, as we know it, what does it mean to remain in limbo state before the life review? Is this not also where all the addictions have to get karmically addressed through quarantine? It's a very interesting question, that, because I've not really addressed the distance into the difference in terms of time versus how long it takes to come out of these things. There's no rules, or there's no normality associated with how long it takes to move out of one particular state of self-created limbo, as it were, versus moving out of the environment and going back into the energetic. And those who have to have their karma, the addictions karmically, or the addictions that are karmically addressed, my understanding is that they can do it either within that reality through skillful interaction of the guide and helpers, or they have to go through like a quarantine area where the addictions that could potentially affect the true entity itself have to be removed, and that again requires a lot of skill on behalf of the true entity itself and the guide and helpers. And so what they have to do is they have to sort of almost relive or re-experience those things that create the addictions, that creates the karmic links, and get to the point where they are no longer addicted to them or no longer attracted to them. And then when they've achieved that state, then they can move back to the quarantine levels. Okay. So the next part of this is this time in limbo reflected in an inability to communicate with the aspects test whilst in this state? If from their perspective, yes. But from the perspective of the test with the aspect, no. And also, obviously, the guide and helpers can still communicate with the aspect in the same way they used to when the aspect was incarnate. So that's the problem, you see. They're having to work with the limited ability and functions of the communicative bandwidth of the aspect, because it's still within or working within the confines of lower frequency existence, even though it's not. And what about the ability for newly demised aspect to communicate with still incarnate systems such as animals, plants, non-human animals, and through nature itself? How does this time out affect the physical reality? In effect, does it contribute to the lack of understanding and the cause effects of ripples in our lives? The newly demised aspect really wouldn't want to communicate with the still incarnate systems such as animals, plants, non-human animals, and nature itself. Although the aspect of nature which is energetic, it can do, of course, because it's a function of source. The only time an aspect would want to communicate with a human is if there's a loved human that is still incarnate that needs to be given a message or something, some level of communication or some sign that says that the personality or the essence or the sentience that is or was incarnate as that loved human is still in existence, and so therefore there's some level of ability to communicate, albeit on a transient basis, with humans, plants, non-human animals, etc. And nature is probably not so attractive to want to re-communicate with. But there are times when human beings want to give consolation to those who are still in the incarnate state and therefore don't know or can't remember who and what they truly are, and so experience bereavement and sadness of loss. Okay. So how does this time out affect the physical reality? The physical reality isn't really affected in real terms. We just linearize things. So if you think of it in terms of the individual who's within a quarantine because there's too much karma associated with it that it would contaminate the true entity itself, or the entity that's stuck within its own reality, this limbo state, as being in a different event space, then when they come out of that event space, they may have spent thousands of years, in human terms, to get from where they were to coming out of that event space. But from our perspective, it could be nothing. It could be a second, it could be a minute, it could be 100 years. It just depends upon the entry and exit point of the event space. And so, really, this sort of shows that everything can occur concurrently. And although we create this linear existence from a time-based perspective, whilst we're here, in actual fact, it doesn't really mean anything as such. And so the physical reality is also a part of the greater reality, but we linearize it from a human being perspective. So somebody can spend an awful long time in one of these quarantine areas or one of these, shall I say, conditions of limbo, and it can appear to be like a couple of seconds on the physical plane, or they can spend a few hours in limbo or in the quarantine, and it could potentially be days, weeks, months, or years in the physical. It just depends upon how the aspect enters into that event space and how it exits that event space, and where that event space was interacting with the event space that we call the physical environment. Okay, and it can move around, just to make things even more complicated. So if it was potentially 100 years, and the event space sort of reappeared, so to speak, 100 years in the future, the aspect might want to bring it back to a few seconds after it demised. So it can still move things around. It can enter into another event space and come out the other side in a few seconds after the demise process. So the time period associated with the physical world, the physical universe, isn't affected. It's simply personal experience that's affected, and personal interaction with self, guides, helpers, and environment that's affected. And the next bit is about the dreams, and this is the last question from this particular contributor. Thank you very much for these rather interesting questions. Next one is on dreams, and we've gone through dreams, so this might be a supplementary sort of response to the dreams. First, starting with sleep, is the state of consciousness we designate with most dreams recorded. Humans and many non-mammals demonstrate a psychological need for sleep. Science estimates that only about a third of the human lifetime is spent in a sleep state. So what role do dreams play in this critical state of sleep for the physical vehicles being used by humans and non-human animals? Well, again, dreams are the same thing. It's when the sentience moves out of the gross physical and the energetic side of the spiritual physical side of the human vehicle, and experience the frequencies associated with the astral, or they move beyond this particular universe. Or they receive guidance from their guide and helpers. What are the myriad functions that the dreams provide? So, I mean, really, so I'll start again. What are the myriad functions that dreams provide, and how can we train our skills at understanding the information being presented to us in dreams? I went through that basically in the first part. So this is like supplementary, but to summarise, dreams come in three conditions and two states. First condition is when there's information being given to us by our guide and helpers, which is usually using imagery as a symbolic method of communication, or sometimes we get words as well. And the second condition is when we're experiencing something which is based upon the Earth level, but at a higher frequency, or outside of the Earth level, but at a higher frequency as well, usually within the 4th, 5th, 6th, and 7th frequencies associated with the multiverse, but still within the universe. And we can stay within the Earth environment, or we can move out of the Earth environment to different planets or galaxies. And the second part of that, the second condition of that, or the third part of it is that we experience the movement of our sentience outside of the environment created by our particular universe, and go into other frequential levels that also house different universes. So the translation medium there is based upon our total experience. The user's being used as a translation medium there. So symbology, in terms of the guide and helpers trying to help us, and the translation process based upon our total experience being used in both the astral travelling sense and the projection of the consciousness beyond this particular universal environment. And that's the next sort of part of it is, it seems that this can be a dangerous path to interpret all things in terms of symbols in dreams. Yeah. I'll question a universal dictionary of dream meanings and rest that authority upon the dreamer to both gain that knowledge and develop their personal awareness. Keeping a journal by the bed to record dreams can help recall the detail. I agree. Actually, if you think about it, a universal dictionary, so to speak, of dream meanings can only be a generalization. The detail is based upon the individual's experiential vocabulary, so to speak, and what these different experiences mean to them. So it can only ever be individualized. There can be general stuff that I talked about in the first few minutes of this particular World Satsanga, but after that, it's definitely personalised. Okay. So what are other ways we can cultivate the understanding and meaning of communications being presented to us in the dream state? Many have personal experience getting messages through dreams ranging from physical health of themselves to the imminent death of loved ones, to worldwide catastrophic events. So it seems that a medium of communication, so it seems that they are a medium of communication. How can we contribute to the advancement of study of dreams as a means of connecting with our own bodies and true energetic self to improve this situation on Earth for mankind to evolve into a more peaceful, non-warring society? We need to really use them for what they are, which is a communicative medium or an experiential medium, basically, and recognise them as being a plethora of opportunity for various different informational states, either for ourselves or for the wider environment, the wider group of individuals interacting with that environment and ourselves. So really all we can do is identify what the standard type of response is, and then identify how to recognise individualised responses and what they mean for us. And that may mean that there's a need for a specific generalised text of lessons, so to speak, that say, well, if you're receiving this information, in general, this means this, but what does it mean for you? And that would mean, search into yourself. What does this image mean to you? What does that animal mean to you? What does that response with a loved one mean for you? What does that response to a person within your job or your career role mean to you? So I believe that the only way forward is to create a framework that people can use and move forwards with, to enable them to create their own dictionary, and that would be a good way forwards. And if people started to use their interaction with themselves during this sleep state, and to recognise who and what they are based upon the communication and recognition of communication between their guide and helpers and their own experiential experience in various different astral levels and through the parts of the physical universe and the rest of the multiverse, then they will generate a level of understanding of who and what we are, and that we are a much bigger entity than we think we are. It will give us a wider understanding as well. Okay. So next question. So thank you very much for those questions. It's a very wonderful series of questions, very deep searching series of questions, and I hope I've done them justice in this the short time I've got here. So let's go to the other series of questions here. Is the physical universe infinite and ever expanding, and if so, into what? Are there a number of true energetic selves created by source? Or is there an infinite number of true energetic selves created by source? By the way, since the number 12 is a recurring number, I wonder if there are 12 to the power of 12, and almost 9 trillion true energetic cells that SE1 created, a finite number. There was a finite number of true energetic cells. I don't know the total number, and I'm not going to try to understand what that number is. But I am told that it's an inverse fractal of the structure of the source. So bear in mind there's frequencies, subdimensional components, full dimensions and zones associated with source. Then you could think of it in terms of the fractalized general notion of that. Now, there was a number based on billions in one of the books, but I realised that was just a value just to sort of give us something to work on. If you did 12, if you worked it out as being something along the lines of 12 to the power of 12 to the power of 12 to the power of, that's right, isn't it? Yeah, 1, 2, yeah. 12 to the power of 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 3 to the power of 12, then that's the sort of function you would get in terms of the fractalization of the source, going from zones to full dimensions to subdimensions to frequencies, and ignoring the error associated with the physical universe. So the number of trinitic selves is definitely finite. The physical universe is finite. The idea of it being expanding is based upon certain limited abilities of scientists to be able to discover. It's not expanding, it's always been the same size, whatever that size is. And it's infinite from our perspective right now, but it is actually finite in terms of its capacity and its content. So if you think of it as having 12 frequencies, then that's its level of finitude, basically. That's its finite state. And the actual physical size, if you're thinking in terms of relating the size of a galaxy in comparison to the size of the universe, I'm even told that you can't quantify it in human terms, in terms of size, but I'm being told that as an environment, it is finite. It's just that level of infinite, that level of finitude, from our perspective, seems like an infinite condition. Okay, I don't know if that answers the question problem, but because it's a different thing to understand, but it is definitely finite, and there's definitely a finite number of trinitic cells being created. The question goes on. Of course, our minds can't handle the idea of infinity in this respect, and these questions lead me to believe that the universes and trinitic cells, along with the aspects and shards, are not real at all, but rather an idea in the mind of Source Entity 1. In essence, we are real. We're real functions within Source Entity 1. We are real aspects of its sentience that's doing a different role, an individualized role rather than a collective role. So we are real, and we will remain to be real whilst Source Entity 1 desires our individuality. So that's the one way to think of it. And even if we become recommuned with Source when we finish this particular evolutionary cycle, the level of reality is still there, because even if we commune fully and dissolve our total experience and personality, so to speak, as a result of what we've achieved with our trinitic cells, and our trinitic cells do the same thing with Source, then the reality is still there. The environment is still there. The source entity 1 and the rest of the source entities exist within is still there, and the area of the origins, polyomniscient, sentient self-awareness that the source entities are within is also still there. So everything is real. It's just that it's a currently accepted and used function of that reality that we are experiencing right now. So what happens when we finish our current evolutionary cycle and move into the next evolutionary cycle may well be a completely different function of this. And we may not be individualized, or we may be individualized, or we may be individualized in a different way. Okay. So I hope that answered that question. And also another topic, is there a hierarchical organization in the land of trinitic cells, like the Council of Elders, for instance? Yes, there are. They work with those individuals who are incarnating in the physical universe and all these frequencies. They sort of, for want of a better word, work with those entities, the maintenance entities, that maintain the evolutionary efficiency of the multiverse, and specifically in our condition, the evolutionary efficiency of the physical universe. So they work on how we best can interact with this environment and evolve in an efficient way as a result of it. So it's sort of hierarchical in terms of function, although there's no such thing as one particular entity is the boss of another entity, for instance. They all are of equal standing, so to speak. It's just that they work in various different ways. And if you want to consider that the one's a function of another one, or the one's a sub-function of another one, then that's the only way you can create the hierarchical condition associated with it. But these trinitic selves are entities that work with the structure of the multiverse in all these different ways. And actually, that leads me to plug the book I'm working on now, which is called The Curators, which works with, for an example, the organisation or the hierarchical or not as the case may be, functions that some of these trinitic cells adopt to maintain the structure of the multiverse that our source gave us to experience, learn and evolve through. And that particular book is now about 51,300 words through, and is probably going to end up being as big as the Origin Speaks, I think, by the time I finish, because it's expanding as I speak. But right now that book will deal with that level of understanding, but it will deal with it from the function of working with the multiverse rather than working with the, if you like, the possibility of guiding and changing the level of experience through incarnate existence. Okay, so I hope that moves that forwards. We're on the final stretch now. We've got a few questions here from the wonderful person who does the transcription for us. Okay, so let's have a look. Do the beings incarnate in all parts of the physical universe at whatever level that needs their attention? I said, this is me, you said, that's I, I've had 36 lives, but were those on Earth or in many places? Does my partner and my previous partner, Anne, have the same trinitic self? Right, first bit first, the can be anywhere. Generally, the wouldn't be in the physical universe. If you look at the Origin Speaks, you'll see that some of them don't even want to be involved in creation because it creates responsibility. So they can, if those who do incarnate, and this is probably the hybrid or the captive rather than the non-captive or the other that can be outside of the structure of our particular source entity, can be anywhere basically. But those who are hybrid they tend to be the same as every other entity is created by source. They will incarnate in all parts of the physical universe, and whatever frequency they need to experience, learn, and evolve. And that would be the same for captive as well. Non-captive will do whatever they want to. They can incarnate the physical universe or not as the case may be. So it's up to them. My particular incarnations have been in various different parts of the physical universe. And I'm told around 12 of those were on Earth. This is the 12th. So I've been in many different places within the physical universe. Usually I'm being told right now in higher frequency levels. And so they were as diverse as they needed to be to experience what I needed to experience. Anne is part of my trinitic self. She was an aspect of that. My current partner isn't, Celia isn't. She is very aware, a very astute individual, and very high in consciousness in her own right. But she's from a different trinitic self. But at the end of the day, that doesn't matter because we're all part of Source anyway. So even though we're potentially individualised from our trinitic selves, whether those trinitic selves are the same as another soul, or not the case may be, is immaterial, because those trinitic selves are, in essence, an individualised function of Source anyway. So we're all one anyway, so it doesn't matter from that perspective. Next bit is that level of confusion about what I said in last Satsanga about the trinitic self being able to move within 3 full dimensions of where it's located, from an evolutionary speaking. Does it mean three full dimensions up or down from where it is, or just down from where it is? Because at one time I said the trinitic self can experience the multiverse in any order. Right, e.g. simultaneous universe number 350, followed by simultaneous universe 17, then 55. Right, they're different things. the evolutionary level of the true energetic self is not the same as the ability to experience it. The evolutionary level is a linear progression. Linearity, for the first time, works. So we move through, or our true energetic self moves through the structure of the multiverse from an evolutionary perspective, and it can move within 3. Okay, so if you think of it this way, it can move within 3. Usually, it can move within the 3 that are associated with its tritave. There's 3 frequencies. There's 3 dimensions that are sort of lower. There's 3 that are sort of medium. There's 3 that are sort of lower upper, and there's 3 that are upper. So if the first 3 full dimensions is one sort of group. The 3rd, 4th, and 5th. So the 4th, 5th, and 6th are the next group. The 7th, 8th, and 9th are the next group, and the 10th, 11th, and 12th are the next group. But my understanding is that the Trinity itself can move within 3 dimensions only. Usually the one they're in and the 2 below. So, and in very, very special circumstances, they may be able to go 1 above, but usually not, because that's an evolutionary jump. So, in essence, they can move within the full dimension that they're in, and the 2 below where they are. So it's within those 3 that they can move around. Okay, so that's a sort of a physical location of who and what they are, based upon their evolutionary level. In terms of the experience, it's usually that they can experience these other levels by projecting aspects of themselves. So although they have a static position based upon evolution, the experience can be randomized because of what they project into these different levels. So one is sort of location based upon evolution, and one is location based upon need to experience. So they're 2 different things. So in summary, the 3 dimensions that a true entity itself can move around in as a function of its evolution is the one it's in plus 2 below. Its experience of the multiverse, in terms of how it projects aspects of itself, can be randomized. So it can go into any particular location. It can go in universe 350 followed by universe 17, followed by universe 55. That's an experiential condition, not an evolutionary condition. So they're 2 separate things. Okay, right, next set of questions. And in the history of God, in page 267, I asked how many sentient races of beings are there on Earth? And the source said 3, but there's soon to be a plan for a 4th, besides humans, dolphins, and a 3rd energetic race. Please elaborate on these last 2 sentient races. What kind of 3rd energetic race? What is the 3rd energetic race like? What form do they have? What frequency do they exist on the Earth? And what full dimensional level of the multiverse do they come from? What is their function? And what's the 4th sentient race like? Same questions about form, frequency level, multiversal level, and function on Earth. Right, so the 3rd energetic race is probably a bit of a misnomer. Because I'm picking up that when I wrote that book, I personally didn't understand that at the time we could incarnate at various different frequential levels. And so an entity that's classified in my mind then as energetic would actually be a higher frequency incarnate vehicle. So the 3rd energetic race is actually a higher frequency incarnate vehicle. So humans and dolphins are in this particular frequential level, the first 3. The other race is one that is more of a 4th frequential level state of incarnation. I'm being told with some of its with sort of tendencies to creep towards the 5th frequency. And so they are incarnate vehicles, incarnate bodies that are higher frequency. They exist here now. I'm being told they exist in all parts of the localized physical universe on the levels that on the frequency levels that they work on. So they work on around, say, let's say, between 4 and 5 frequency levels. Their function is to experience, learn, and evolve on this planet at that level. So they're not as immersed in their incarnation as we are as such, but they're nevertheless involved with it. They're not affected by what we do either, because they're on a different frequency. Now clearly the Earth is a pan-frequential body, so it exists on all different frequency levels associated with the physical universe. But in essence, it is capable of supporting all different incarnate vehicles at all different frequency levels associated with the physical universe. And although there are things that we do on this level affect us, it wouldn't affect them. So they're experiencing a similar sort of existence to us, but on a higher frequential level. Okay. Think of it in terms of different event spaces or different realities. Although they can experience what we're experiencing, it's just on a higher frequency level. Now, that comment is interesting, because usually when we're in a higher frequency, we would see the different entities that exist on the frequencies below us. If we go to the 4th level, we would see the entities on the 3rd level, but we wouldn't be able to see the entities on the 5th level. If we go to the 5th level, we wouldn't be able to see the entities on the 6th level, but we'd see the entities on the 5th, 4th, and 3rd levels. But I'm being told that these entities, although they experience the things around them that are part of what we are, they've found some way of separating out their frequency from the frequencies that we would have just described. So it's like a sub-frequential state where they can experience what they need to experience on their frequency, but they don't need to interact with or be associated with anything that we do on our particular level. Okay. So their function is just to experience, learn, and evolve on this particular planet, but at a higher frequency, and in a segmented sense. The 4th sentient race is, or will be, just asking the question. One of the benefits of doing this particular satsanga, or all the satsangas that are pre-recorded actually, is I don't pre-read the questions. So everything is any channeled information that comes through, which is usually most of the time actually, unless there's a question that's based upon one of the books that I know that I'm just relaying my particular understanding to, are all sort of on the spot channeling. So it's all live from that perspective. I'm being told the 4th race will be well above our frequency, like in the 12th frequency, and obviously at that point they're going to be more than energetic, as it were. They won't. I'm being told they won't incarnate in a body that's at that level. They're simply going to be here to observe. There's a need to try to recalibrate how everybody is functioning on this particular location and the location that our galaxy exists within. And so there's a group of entities who are individualized aspects of their trinity cells, but they're going to move into this environment with a view to, I'm saying, subliminally change the thought processes or behavioural processes and actions, therefore, of all of the entities that are existing here, the various different energetic states, that being different incarnate frequential levels, I should say, to try to accelerate the progression or the reclaiming of frequential level on the planet. So they're going to be more like observers and guiders more than anything else. So that's the level they're on. within the physical universe. I mean, where they come from, and the twin energetic self, is from the sixth full dimensional level. So their twin energetic selves exist within the sixth full dimension. Okay, so they're here to sort of help us clean up our act, but they'll be doing it in a subliminal way rather than an active way. So there'll be no sudden appearances. Okay, and the last sort of question or series of questions is based upon the history of God in page 387, where it writes about the Council of 12, stating that they reside on Zion, a moon around the planet Surbiton, but in the Ann dialogues, I learned that there are more than one Council of 12. Oh, blimey. Please elaborate on these councils. There are 12 councils of 12, as you can probably imagine, and each of them has a different function within the structure of the multiverse. They seem to work, each of them seems to work with a specialism, and that specialism is the coordination of incarnation within certain frequential levels. So there is one that works with the first three frequencies, and then one that works with every frequency up towards the 12th. Well, that only counts to 10. So the other two are involved with those entities that are of the animal or non-human type of genre of entity, and the other one is to do with the entities, or the genre of aspect that's in between the animal and the human, so to speak. So they require one sort of council each for all the frequencies that they work with, because there tends to be only one particular level that those genres of aspects incarnate into, whereas our genre of aspect can incarnate into any of the frequencies associated with the physical universe. So there's 12 councils of 12. 10 of them are associated with our type of soul, and the other two are associated with the animal genre of soul, and the genre of soul that will be used for the backfill people, for instance. Those sorts of things. Okay. Again, I could probably write a book on those things, actually, what they each do and the little different functions associated with them. In fact, I might put a mental note to add them into the curators, because when I get into working with working with what we call the elementals, which is those entities that are working with the earth and work with the physicality associated with the lower frequencies and the environmental eco-structure, these councils will also work with how we interface with those sorts of things. So if I make a mental note, I'll see if I can add those into, or make a mental note to add them into the back of the book somewhere, so we can see the correlation between these councils and the other hierarchical structure of the curators, so to speak. So where is Zion located? Is it the only place that they reside, or just a vacation home? Well, I mean, Zion's a name that's been used for eternity in terms of the human beings' understanding. It's a name that has been passed down through the ages. But in terms of its location, I'm being told, at the far end of our particular galaxy, but I'm being told, they move around the frequencies. They when they're interacting with the Earth, they reside on that particular planet. We're on the third frequential level. But when they're working on other areas, they move to the different then they move around. So I'm being told they don't move around frequentially, because each of the different frequencies has got a council of 12 above the third, that is, of course. So this council of 12 work with the frequencies that are the first three, but they move around. So although they sort of convene in this particular area, they don't always work together. They work singularly, depending on where they are within the structure of the of the physical universe and what they're doing. And so their function is relative to Earth, our solar system, and the rest of the physical universe on that particular level. So their responsibility is the third frequency level and below, which when you add it up together equals the gross physical. And they work not only on Earth, but they work in other areas as well of the physical universe on these different levels. Clearly, with the Earth having free will, and it's the only area where we have individualized free will, they have a particular interest in it. And I'm told that one of the Council of 12 is, shall I say, nominally interested in terms of what goes on this particular planet. Okay. So are they maintenance entities or curators, or are they in the evolutionary cycle like we are? They are, or just a higher level as overseers and guiding the guides. They're not really curators as such. They are more of, although you could classify them as being curators, because although they don't function specifically to maintain the structural, the evolutionary efficiency of this particular part of the multiverse, they are, if you like, responsible for maintaining the way in which we interact with it. So they're not quite curators. They're more guides, if you want to call it that. So that's probably a better way of looking at it. They are a higher level. They don't incarnate. They don't need to. They moreover guide the way in which we interact in a collective sense with the environments that we incarnate with. And so you could classify as being more overseers, I would guess, and guides. Although they wouldn't particularly guide the guides. They're more of so the guides are sort of a different type of entity than them. These are more. They're sort of the bridge between the curators and us as incarnate individuals. They sort of form the link between those entities which are maintaining the evolutionary efficiency of the multiverse, in this instance the physical universe, and those that interact with it, which are us and our guide and helpers. So that's probably the best way to explain what they are. Okay. Well, that comes to the end of the questions. Thank you very much. I know that this particular satsanga is a particularly long one. Well, it's probably justified because the gap between this satsanga and the next one is going to be about 6 weeks. So although I apologise for the length, I'm sort of justifying it somewhat. And so now we come to the end of it, which is the meditation on bringing source to ourselves. Okay. So what I'd like you all to do now is to, if you haven't already done so, sit in your straight-backed chair, or find one and sit in one. Place your feet flat on the ground. Okay. And your palms uppermost, but balanced on the tops of your thighs, the upper thighs, where the thighs meet the lower body. And focus your closed eye vision on the origin of the third eye, which is above the nose, above the bridge of the nose and between the two eyebrows. And I want you to either use your mentally spoken words if you have trouble visualizing, that being a spoken word. You can repeat what I say if you have trouble in working out what words to use, or visualize that we are individualized and sitting in our rooms in our human body. And now I want you to visualize or state, and you can repeat exactly what I'm saying, but where we are, in our room or bedroom or study or living room or quiet area within the house, or might even be outside somewhere. But we are not specifically alone or individualized. But we are simply a smaller, albeit individualized, subsection of a larger entity. So all of the quantum aspects of gross physicality that make up the human form, from the cells down to the atoms, the electrons, protons, neutrons, quarks, stresses and charm, the elements below the quarks, the elements above the anu and the anu themselves, are all part of Source. We are part of Source. And then there's all of our, this will be a growing feeling as you're saying these words or visualizing these thoughts. And so you start to feel that you are a collective of these smaller aspects of gross physicality. You're a bigger part of those smaller parts. So just all you are is all of these smaller parts together. Some of you might feel as if you're buzzing at the moment or fizzing. That's because you're starting to feel the individuality of all these parts all together, collected into the gross physical and the spiritual physical aspects of who and what you are. Or should I say what the vehicle is that you use. Your human form. Now I want you to think of yourself as a smaller part of Source. So where we are sitting now in our room is a collection of all of those smaller aspects of gross physicality, the anu, the structure above the anu, the structure below the quarks, the protons, neutrons, electrons, the atoms and the cells, etc. That forming one particular microverse, we are part of a macroverse. So whilst we're here still, just consider that all the frequencies associated with the gross physical, the first three frequencies, part of a bigger being, that the fourth, fifth, sixth and seventh frequencies that we call the astral, part of a bigger being, the 8th, 9th and 10th frequencies are also part of a bigger being. These frequencies are also part or used by us to create an individual body. These frequencies are also available within the physical universe. And so within the physical universe there's two more frequencies, the 11th and 12th, so those are part of us as well. So we're integrated with it. And that creates the first full dimension. And so we are connected to or linked into, in the incarnate state, the first full dimension within what the structure of the Source is. Because we're part of this structure, we are part of the multiverse. So again, the multiverse resides within us. We reside within the multiverse. as the multiverse is within the source, we are also within the source. We are the source. So the structure of what we are exists within a multiversal environment, which is within the source. And so we are all, everything here, within this, your room, where you're sitting down, is also within source. It is source. And the multiverse is also a smaller function of source. It's around half or 50% of source. And so therefore it is the source. And so extrapolating backwards, the source has the multiverse inside it, and within the frequencies associated with the multiverse is our true energetic selves. Within the frequencies associated with the lowest function of the multiverse is the physical universe. The energies associated with the physical universe are also used to create our gross spiritual, physical and gross physical bodies. And so therefore the cells, the atoms, the quarks, the structure below the quarks, the structure above the Anu, and then the Anu are also source. Because everything is source, we are source. And so therefore we are in constant contact with source. It's only a function of thought, a function of sentience, that makes us feel or believe that we are separated from source. And that's a function of our incarnate state, where our communicative ability is reduced to near nothingness while we're incarnate. And so in reality we're always connected to source, because we are the source. Even if we can't remember it, we are in connection with source. And so in this connected state, this realization of oneness, of us being source and source being us, feel the additional sentience, the energies, the thoughts, behaviours and actions of source and all those other true energetic selves the source created. Feel it coursing through your own energies. There is no separation, there is only source. And all we are is a small but individualized function of source that has a little role to do within source. Because we are source and source is us, source pervades us. It is within and without us. There is no demarcation between source and us, or us and source. Feel this connection of source coursing through you, pervading you. In this condition you can feel and know that you are one with the source and the source is one with you. And so, in this state, know and feel the connection with source. And if you wish at this point, you can ask Source for any guidance, direction, any question, any encouragement, whether it's verbal, visual, audible, or just knowing, or a state of feeling or beingness. Just feel this connection with Source, because Source is you. Feel this integration, this communion, this wholeness. You've created this whilst in your living room, quiet room, bathroom, bedroom, wherever you do your meditation or your listen to this particular World Satsanga. We'll stay in this just a couple of minutes just so you can get the feeling of it. So I suggest you practice this and give yourself an hour to stay in this particular state of beingness. Know that in this condition you are omniscient and omnipresent. The only limitations are in your mind. Limitations born upon being immersed in your human incarnate condition. And so just know that you're always connected to Source, so you can stay in this state, just gently recognizing that you're going to stay in this state. Slowly come back into the room. You don't need to come down a level or move any direction or anything. This is just a realization process. So gradually come back into the room. Open your eyes and take a drink of water if you have some. Okay. When you're ready, you can start to move around a bit. Okay, so that's the end of the Satsanga today. And thank you very much for listening to it, and thank you very much for your questions and your dedication and devotion to understanding things of the greater reality. Again, I'll thank Kevin Moore for all of his help in extra broadcasting this particular audio and creating the imagery to support it and allowing it to be on his YouTube channel as well. Kevin's a fantastic person, and he's doing a great job in terms of being of service to the rest of the world as well. So God's love to you all, much love to you all, season's greetings to you all, and look forward to working with you again on the next Satsanga, which will be the 21st of January 2017. A great Christmas, everybody.